Show. All up.
Hello, automobile lovers, and welcome to the C&C Auto Show. I am Aaron Clements.
I'm Aaron Clements. I thought I was supposed to be you
No,
today.
you missed it by a little bit.
Oh, okay. I'm John Ryan.
We're both here because we would love to share information with you, and our goal is to give you information on ways to make your car, truck, or SUV safer, more dependable, make it last longer for less money and less hassle. Our favorite way to do that is on the telephone, 805 to 10. Saturday mornings from anywhere, that's Eastern Time, 706-863-5800. You can also watch us live and ask questions on Saturday mornings, 805 to 10. That's on Facebook. You can watch past shows on YouTube. Just before pulling the string on this bad boy, we want to mention that if you're looking for a good, I say great, professional automotive repair facility in almost any area around our beautiful country, go to NapaAutoCare.com. That's NapaAutoCare.com. And John Ryan, are we ready to fire it off?
Yeah, I'm ready. Glow plug,
All
we're
right.
hot.
Pull the rope.
Rope.
There it is. We are fired up. We are ready. And along with answering your automotive questions, we always like to have a theme. And today's theme is driving at night. Driving at night prevents a unique set of dangers, and that explains why accident-related death rates are 3 times greater at night than during the day. Very sad. And because safe driving knowledge is safe driving power, the best way to stay safe at night is to understand the challenges of driving after dark. And we'll cover some of that today. But the first thing we want to do is go to our phone calls.
And that we're going to do. Let's go to Nathan.
Nathan, welcome to the C&C Auto Show. We appreciate the call.
All right. Well, you may have answered this a little earlier.
Mhm.
I have a Town Country 2007, about 130,000 miles on it, 3.8 liter engine.
Mm-hmm.
It's been running really rough and throwing the check engine light for a while. Took it to our normal service individual. He tried replacing the map sensor, and then the connector to it seemed to run well for a little bit. Then began to, as I wondered, as it's gotten colder, when it idles in the morning, it's almost like it's not even running a cylinder till it warms up. He's at the point now where he says, hook it up to the smoke machine, check for vacuum leak. Talking to the manifold, those plastic manifolds maybe have cracked or is letting some air through. So, sound like what was it John earlier was talking?
Yeah, I got some more questions for you, Nathan. Just going
Okay.
off of that engine. So it's 3.8, right?
Yep.
And in this vehicle, it runs pretty rough, cold. And does it get better when it warms up, or is it still running bad?
But it seems to get better when it warms up. The real rough idle has been new to the last couple of weeks. So I wondered if we're dealing with the much colder temperatures, especially in the morning.
Right.
But it's to the point where I've had to shift into neutral when I stop.
Okay.
So the car doesn't bounce all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
How about going down the road, say 50 miles an hour? Is the check engine light flashing, or is it on solid?
Just on solid.
It's on solid. What are the trouble codes that are in the system now? Do you know?
One was map sensor.
Okay.
It was throwing a couple other, and off the top of my head, I don't remember those.
Okay.
At the moment, but when our mechanic was looking at that, those are.
Right.
That's when he said, "Well, let's try." My next recommendation is try the smoke and the vacuum leaks.
And as far as the tune-up parts, the plug wires and all that stuff, has they been replaced, or are they okay?
As far as I know, they're okay. I think the mechanic.
And that's the reason I'm asking. I'm assuming he's checked all the normal stuff. The plugs hopefully are good. The plug wires are good. It's actually putting out spark on whatever cylinder is misfiring. The thing that caught my ear was the map sensor code. On those 3.8s, there's a little bit of explaining to do as far as why this happens. But whenever they set a map code, quite often we see valve train problems with those. They break valve springs, and they break valve springs to the point to where the valve will still open and close, but it won't fully seat. So going down the road, it's halfway okay because it's at a higher RPM. It's kind of running along. The compression builds a little bit more than it does at idle. And at idle, the valve spring is still operating, but it's cracked. And in a lot of cases, of course, Aaron, they fall completely off, and it's a dead hole no matter what.
Yep.
But when the valve spring cracks, it can actually be very bad at idle, like you mentioned, feels like it's got a dead hole or a dead cylinder. And then as the RPMs increase in the engine, it of course gets better. The reason I asked you about the check engine light, if it's flashing, is because the car's computer is smart enough to see if it's misfiring, and it will detect that and of course flash the light. However, it doesn't seem like it's doing that. So assuming that all the normal checks have been checked, again, one thing that would be done for that issue that I mentioned as far as the actual valve train issue would be a running compression test. Everybody.
You took the words out of my mouth, John. Right on.
Well, and I'm going to be honest. I forget this quite often also. You do a compression test, and you're like, hey, it's great.
Yeah.
Skip to the next.
Because regular compression will show
Regular
good.
compression will show fine. However, running compression, and again, it doesn't matter what it is as long as it's within 10-15% of the rest of them. But you'll probably see anywhere from 55 to 85, something like that, running at idle. And that test needs to be performed. Now, if it's low on that cylinder, depending on which bank it is, hopefully it's the front bank because that's the easy bank to get to. You can remove the valve cover and, of course, inspect the valve springs. Of course, you do the same thing. But really, I think your next test, unless this has already been done, is going to be a running compression. If you could get us the codes, maybe next weekend, give us a call back. We can kind of lead you in maybe a even more precise direction. But I do kind of feel like those 3.8s, they're great engines. Of course, they do occasionally have a bad coil. Coils are normally dead cylinders no matter what. Doesn't matter temperature at all, because what they do is the driver, or not the driver, but the driver being commanded actually fails, and it will not output spark on whatever two cylinders that is. So I don't think you have that issue because they run really.
The only
really
other
rough.
thing that comes to mind is the possibility of a dead injector,
Yeah.
or a faulty injector, and that's a pretty simple test. He can check that by adding propane,
Right.
see if it
See
comes
if it
up,
clears
or
up.
actually touching the injector with the listing device to tell if it's cutting on and off, and of course checking with a Noid light to see if the computer is signaling it. So. What's helpful is to identify the cylinder first, if possible, which one's missing, and then after that, the running compression test and test that injector.
And the reason I felt like that is just simply because I'm assuming all the tests have been done, as far as the regular stuff.
Yeah, to make sure the injector's already working. Okay.
Right. So Nathan, does that help?
All right.
Or just give you more work to do?
Well, do I bother in your mind with the smoke test?
If it's available, I'd rule it out. It's a very simple test to do. I will say that very rarely do we see manifolds leak on those. You're right. It is a phenolic manifold and, of course, an aluminum blower, but rarely, unless they've been off and maybe misinstalled or something like that. Rarely see those leak.
Well, his curiosity, I mean, he squirted water on the front side, but of course you can't get to the back side of that manifold.
Right.
On that side mount motor.
Sure.
But okay. It gives me some things to look at.
All right. And again, if next weekend you give us a call back with codes, we might can pinpoint it a little bit better for you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Bye.
Okay. John Ryan, let's go to Kevin so we can ask him to hold on just for a little bit.
All right. Let's go to him.
Hey, Kevin.
Hello.
I was going to ask a question. You've been holding a little bit, and you have a question about noise coming through a radio in your Honda Civic, and we were going to ask if you would hold on because I do feel like we may have some answers for you that may help you in that department. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to put you on hold, and we're going to cover one tip, then we're going to the break, and then we'll come back and go straight to Kevin. And we want to recommend that you increase the following distance between you and the car in front of you. That's at night. Do that all the time. But the 3-second rule for safe following, that is to make sure that you would take at least 3 seconds to reach the car ahead of you in an emergency. Especially be careful to do that at night because, of course, the visibility is not near as well. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Stretched my feet out to the pedals, smiling like a hero that just received his medal. It was just an old hand-me-down Ford with 3-speed on the column and a dent in the door.
We are back with you, and we will go straight to the calls.
All right, we're going back to Kevin, Aaron.
Hello, Kevin. Welcome to the
Hello.
C&C Auto Show.
Thank you. First of all, I called about a month ago, but it was right at the end of the show,
Mhm.
and you didn't have time to get into this.
Yeah.
So basically, we got a '06 Honda, about a Honda Civic, 165,000 miles, and just sometimes through the radio speakers, I get a loud popping and cracking noise. Not continuous, it's just sporadic, but it's original factory equipment, and just wonder if you had any ideas.
Kevin, I actually remember a call like this, but I actually thought it was a lot older. I thought it was in the 90s, 98, something like that. We had mentioned the capacitor and noise suppressor on the end of the valve cover. A lot of people forget to put them back on, or if the distributor's replaced. But being '06, that's a whole different radio system. The radio system that I'm thinking in this one is dead center. It's got the blue display, got the knob right in the middle. Is that the one?
Yes.
Does this one have Bluetooth?
It does not.
It does not have Bluetooth. Does it have aux input or anything like that?
It does have an aux input.
Do you have any cords hooked up to it or anything like that?
No.
I was just curious if it would make the noise with the cord hooked up versus without.
With something plugged in or whatever, that does not have an effect on
Doesn't
whether
seem to
it
change
makes
it.
that noise or not.
And as far as the noise, it's nothing like as far as like engine noise. It's just some popping and
Does it
cracking.
vary any when you rev the engine up or change the speed of the engine? Does the noise?
Sometimes,
Huh?
sometimes it does.
Okay.
I hear it with the engine noise, but most of the time, not so much. It's just popping and cracking noises.
Yet notice if you were to cut your headlights on and off,
Change, yeah.
or change the load on the
Electrical system.
on there, does it make any difference then?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Normally, what happens when I first turn it on, you'll hear the noise, and I cut it off and restart, and that might make it go away.
Right. Those noises are very hard to track down, just being honest with you, Kevin. There's so many things that I
Right.
can think of. Of course, electrical system, let's start at the battery. If you have corrosion on the battery, that could cause it. What you're describing to me, the first thing that pops into mind is a ground wire somewhere,
Yeah.
whether it being corroded or loose or not, properly installed. We see ground wires that sometimes people put them on plastic, run them through the sheet metal. Of course, it grounds, but it goes through the screw rather than the sheet metal itself. With that stereo system, I don't believe that one has an external amplifier. Years ago, back in the day when some of the Bose and Infinity and Rockford Fosgate's radios came out, they had an auxiliary amplifier, just as if you were to put one in aftermarket. And the amplifiers, they would be grounded in a way to where maybe they were located in a spot to where it created noise and noise would pop through, the speakers. So I'll look throughout the week, maybe for bulletins and stuff like that. There may be some common bulletins. I know some of them, Aaron, you and I had talked about this a long time ago. When defrost is on, it has something to do
Yeah.
with it because the amplifier is mounted very close to the window, and the frequency, going across
Some
the
have a
glass.
capacitor on the back of the
Noise
alternator.
suppressor, yeah.
Of course, the long time thing that used to call that years ago used to be the spark plug. That was many, many years ago.
Right.
But you can still get plug wires that don't do a very good job of suppressing
Isolate, yeah.
noise also. So you could even have something like that.
And
Did you, just one quick question, does it make any difference whether the engine is running or not running?
Not that I've noticed.
Okay.
Okay.
And Kevin, this show's all about, trying to find the answer. So one thing that I always think of is a good idea would be is to call radio shops. Say, hey, I got a '06 Civic. Is it common for my radio to make a noise? Now, if they try and sell you a radio, obviously, don't go that route. But maybe they know of a very common problem. Maybe they say, oh, the radios go bad. They do this and this and this. And the fix is an aftermarket radio. But there's quite a few radio shops, throughout the town that may have that answer also.
I think in the meantime, just be very conscious of when it's doing it, what you're operating, and then when you start hearing it, do different things like cut your headlights off, cut the blower motor off,
Right.
race the engine to see if it changes tones or anything like that, and narrow it down. That way, when you start really doing the looking, for instance, if you hear it with the engine running, you may even, if you know that you can make it do it, you may even take the alternator belt off and let it run for a second and see if it's gone.
I did just have one of these random thoughts. Does it have factory headlights in it?
Factory headlights?
Yeah.
Oh,
Have you
yes.
changed any of the headlights or anything like that?
No, I've only had this thing about a month or two.
Okay. I will tell you, just again, a random thought. We had a Lincoln, I believe it was a town car, had HID lights in it, and they were kind of the eBay kit, the 1995 ones, and
Yeah.
it would cause all kinds of crazy noises in the radio. But if it's got factory, we'll rule that out. So, Kevin, I think I would do just like Aaron said, kind of be conscious of when exactly it doesn't. Maybe give those stereo shops a call.
Yeah, I did stop at one. He's like, oh, radio's going bad. You got to replace the head unit.
Yeah.
Of course.
And John Ryan
And,
will, if John Ryan gets more information on the
Yeah.
next show, then we'll mention that also.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Appreciate
And
it.
also,
Sure.
don't hesitate to call back and keep us updated. Okay, the number to call, 706-863-5800. John Ryan, who will we be talking to?
And let's go over to Sam. And then I wanted to remind you that you hadn't done the tech tip.
Oh, wow. Hey, Sam.
Sam might get it.
Yes.
Hey, is there a chance I could ask you to hold just for a second so I can
Sure,
give
go-
the tech
go
tip
right ahead.
quiz just before we take our next break?
Okay.
All right, that way it would be fair to you because you'll get a chance to have a break, think about it, and possibly answer our tech tip quiz at the same time.
Okay.
That sounds like a fair deal to me. Okay, we do have a tech tip quiz, and if someone answers that quiz, they'll win the prize package, which includes a coffee mug, a hat, and also the I Answered the Tech Tip Quiz golf shirt. And then also they will win all the fame and glory and all of that stuff. They'll be walking around strutting like a proud peacock.
Uh-huh.
Woo. All right, now, here is the question. John owns a 2005 Lincoln Town Car. On certain nights, now this is certain nights of the week, his alarm system just goes boom. Now here's what's a little tricky. It does it almost each time it does it. It's always around 4 a.m. and he looks outside and he normally sees a dog near the car, and there's normally cat tracks on the car the next morning also. So the question is, why does the alarm normally when when it goes off is at around 4 a.m. And so far, out of all this time, he has not found anything missing from his car. So it's a little bit of a tricky deal there. And of course, we'll be looking for someone to call in and answer our tech tip quiz.
And Sam will have first shot at it.
Exactly. And Sam will get the first shot. So if you know the answer, give us a call, and we will be right back just after these messages.
Catherine Clements and John Ryan Mooney.
Y'all up?
We are back with you on the C&C Auto Show. We have a tech tip quiz laying on the table, and we also have Sam with a question, and who knows, he may even have an answer to our tech tip quiz. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Morning. I don't have an answer for the tech tip.
Well, you don't have to be. You have a question, and we love that.
Right. I have a 2012 Mazda 6 with a instrument cluster lighting problem. The cluster lighting is fine when you have the lights on, but the illumination is gone when you have the lights off. Now, I was looking at the diagram in the Chilton manual, and it says there's a microcomputer and then a panel light control, but it doesn't elaborate any further than that. Can you give me any tip as to what might be the problem?
Sam, just so I get this dashboard or instrument panel in my mind, is this the one with the red needles that are actually backlit?
Right.
And so what you're describing is going, like, say if it was nighttime, they would be red, lit up, all nice and everything. But in the day,
that's right.
But can you visually see the cluster right now, like during the day, or is it that?
You can see it. Yes, you can see it. It's just it's not lit up right. So
Okay.
On a dull day, it's more difficult to see.
To see, right? And I'm assuming that with you saying this, that at one time it was illuminated. Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so something's definitely wrong. The only thing I can think of is, of course, number one, the headlight switch sends a signal to the instrument panel to illuminate, and then in the off position, it obviously does not. So I'm wondering if that computer is not seeing, and the manual, of course, is right, that it does have basically a computer that controls when it turns on and when it's not. However, if I'm not mistaken, that may be an option that can be programmed. For instance, daytime running lights, you can turn those off, or you may have curb assist like we were talking about earlier in the show if you want your lights to stay on. That may be an option that could be programmed. I can't say I know of any right off the top problems with those as far as not illuminating when the lights are off. And this sounds like a silly question, but as far as the dimmer, does the dimmer change anything versus, say, when the lights are on? Obviously, it's going to dim the instrument panel, but when the lights are off, does the dimmer have any? Have you tried that?
I have not tried that.
Yeah, just that it might have a dual stage
That's
dimmer.
the most
I mean, that's a
common
possible
question
thing
we
too.
get is actually the reverse of yours, Sam. A lot of people come by and they say my dash lights don't work at night, but they work in the daytime. So of course we cut the headlights on, dash lights are off, and some vehicles have the dimmer switch hid in really weird
because it's
places.
not really used.
Yeah,
it's kind of a preference.
Don't use them that much, and we locate where the dimmer switch is, and then move it around, and boom, it lights up really bright, and they say, wow, that is great. But yours seems to be the opposite of that. But John Ryan's right. It may have an effect on being able to dim it even during the daytime because of the type dash it is.
It does have a little manual control for changing the intensity of the illumination when the lights are on.
Right.
That doesn't seem to.
And it may have that very same feature with the lights off, is what I'm thinking through the the memory or the functionality of the cluster.
Where is that little microcomputer located?
I'm not positive, but 90% of those are always under the driver's side near the kick panel, where the body control module and stuff like that is.
I see.
You want to tap on it, don't you? It's tempting.
Or maybe unplug the wiring and then replug it.
Right. Now, Sam, just a quick tip on that. If you do plan on unplugging it and plugging it back up, really it would probably be a better idea to just do a battery reset on it, simply because I don't want you to lose any programming features. You wouldn't believe the stuff that's programmed in there. Sometimes the security key code's plugged in there, and if you unplug it, it may think you're swapping it out and stuff. So maybe do a battery reset before you unplug it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, the radio lock codes and all kinds of crazy stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try it.
All right, Sam. Thanks
Sam,
for the
we
call.
do appreciate it. And the number to call, 706-863-5800. And that's 8:05 to 10 any Saturday morning Eastern time. And I'm going to give the question for our Tech Tip quiz again.
Yeah, let's hear it.
And the question is, John owns a 2005 Lincoln Town Car. On certain nights, as the alarm system goes off, it's almost always around 4 a.m. When he looks outside, he normally sees a dog near the car, and there's normally cat tracks on the car. Why does the alarm go off at around 4 a.m. normally when it does it? Okay, and again, give us a call. And we're talking about tips to do with driving at night, and we'll cover one or two just before we go to the next phone call. And the next tip is, if your car fails, pull it off the road as far as possible. Turn on the emergency lights and the inner dome light, and don't wander around the car a whole lot. Stay in the car until assistance arrives. Now, if traffic is really, really bad and there's a place that you can like go into a store or get away from the car, do that also, because that's a dangerous situation when a car is broke down at night in traffic especially. So be real careful.
It reminds me of why there's controls on both sides of our wrecker.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Light everything up as much as possible on the car, and just try to be safe until you get some help. Are we ready to go to the calls?
Yeah, Aaron, let's go over to Alex.
Hello, Alex. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show.
Thank you, Bud. How are y'all today?
Very well. Appreciate the call.
No problem. Got a question for you. I've got a 04 Z71 four-wheel drive Chevrolet pickup truck. Air conditioning and heating problem. During the summertime, it'll blow cold air for just a few minutes, and then it begins to blow hot air. And you can actually, I've done it in years past, put it in neutral while I'm going down the road, shut the engine off, turn it right back on, or crank it right back up, and it blows cold air again. Got in it this morning, get a little heat, and it blows cold air constant. I'm not getting any heat at all.
So if those problems flip-flopped, you probably wouldn't worry about it, right?
Yeah. It's called automatic air after that.
Yeah. Alex, what
Exactly.
temperature control system does this have? Does it have the automatic one with the LCD screen, or does it have the two slider knobs?
Does.
It does have
Got
automatic?
dual control,
And
LCD display.
and both of them go, or are both of them cold right now? Neither one of them?
It has done all kinds of things in the past. But we've been in the truck, and the driver's side blowing nice and cold.
Right.
My wife is over there complaining, "Hey, look, it's blowing hot air," and I reach over and feel her vent, and sure enough,
Yeah.
it's blowing hot air out of her vent.
Yeah. Obviously having this truck, that truck is awesome. And really the only problems those trucks have interior wise is everything you're describing. There's there's actuators that of course control the temperature on both sides, one for the driver, one for the passenger. And what happens is it has a limit switch, and when you crank it up, it goes all the way cold. It says, okay, here's where cold is, sets the limit switch, then it goes all the way hot, sets that limit switch. What happens is one of those limit switches is not reporting back, and it doesn't know where it's at. So when you command it cold, it's going hot, or vice versa, of course, in your case. So 9 times out of 10, now not every scan tool will do this. You have to have one that does bidirectional control. You go into the heating and AC control head. There'll probably be a trouble code in there. It sounds like in your case for both actuators. Now, I will tell you this, and this is probably the part you don't want to hear. The driver's side is accessible. The passenger side is not. You have to remove the entire dash for that.
Well, it's accessible. You just got to take the dash out.
Right. So I guess the reason I say this is if it's just you, who cares about the passenger side? You can fix the driver's side.
I've said that many times. My wife gets in my truck, and she goes, "Why don't you get at least get the cups out of the floorboard?" I'm like, "I don't ride over there."
That's right. So no doubt that is kind of a common problem, and especially what you described. You mentioned, how the other one would switch off on you. There is not a test, but a last resort you can do just to try this and give you this tip. Under the fuse box, under the underhood fuse box, they call it. There's a fuse labeled HVAC, obviously the system.
Right.
And if you take that fuse, red 10 amp fuse, if you take that fuse out, wait about 5 minutes, put the fuse back in, crank the truck up, and don't touch anything. The panel's going to go to 74 degrees, and it's basically a way of relearning those actuators without the scan tool. Now, no doubt the scan tool is the proper way to do it, but I would try that. It may give you a few more months of use. I know this sounds crazy. If it does it and it works, leave it alone. Don't touch it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I understand. This is a problem that's been going on for probably 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, if it's replacing those control modules you're talking about, how expensive is that? Because I am not going to be the one that does it.
Well, the parts price is relatively inexpensive. I'd say you'd run in the $75 to $80 range for each actuator. But the big thing is the dash.
On that.
Right. The big thing is the dash job. Now, the other one, the driver's side, is relatively easy to get to. Any technician can get to that one. The other one, you want to make sure you're using an experienced technician because, of course, the dash has to come out. You can get in the $600-700 range for that. So.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at about $750 to do it.
That's right. All right, Aaron. Well, we're all out of time. Hope that helped Alex.
Alex, we appreciate that call. It is time for another break, and when we return, we'll be going to Terry, and also we'll be covering more tips on driving at night. All that just after this.
C&C Auto Show with Aaron Clements and John Ryan Mooney.
Call up.
Mustang Sally. Guess you better slow
We
your
are back with the C&C Auto Show. Fog lights, as the name implies, help the driver to see the road instead of simply lighting up the fog in front of the car. They're aimed as low as possible because fog lights itself often hangs no lower than a couple of feet off the road. And if a fog light is aimed high, it will produce glare in the fog and will blind oncoming drivers. These lights can be useful even when it's not foggy, however, because they spread wider than typical low beams. They can also help you see further beyond the road shoulder. At one point to remember, fog lights placed low in your car's front will also create a large shadows in front of the small rocks and bumps and all that in front of you. So use your fog lights when necessary, but don't use them if you don't need them.
That's right.
And definitely don't leave them on when you're running into other cars.
Right. And especially those light bars and stuff like that a lot of people put on their trucks.
Yeah. Sometimes the other car around the corner, they'll think a 727 jet's landing in front of them because they have all these lights everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
I say that because I'm guilty of it.
I know.
All right,
you
let's
are.
go over to Terry.
Hey, Terry, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. You got a Z71. Do you have all these light bars and all that good stuff too?
I do not. I have a transmission problem on it's a 95 Chevrolet Z71. It shifts fine, had been shifting fine, and one day it wouldn't go into high gear. It shift first to second. And you could cut it off, it would start shifting fine, and it got more periodic. And then it got where it would just stay in first gear. You could manually shift from first to second, but it still would not go into high gear. When you go to high, it's just like it's in neutral.
Right.
What I was thinking about doing, maybe changing the fluid and filter, and I do understand that this is a computer-shifted transmission. They have solenoids, 2 solenoids to shift from first to second, second to third. Would it be wise just to change those also while I change fluid and filter?
Well, Terry, you're on the right track. It is a little bit of a risky job, of course, assuming that those solenoids are bad because the computer very well may not be controlling it. That's kind of the most important thing. Back in those days, of course, obviously you would put a scan tool in there. 95 was one of the first years you could actually do this, and you could actually shift the transmission with a scan tool. You drive it down the road, and regardless of what gear it was in, you could say if you were in second, you command third, and it'd go into third and lock up and so on. So that would be no doubt the right test to have done. Now most shops would say, I would say under $150. Let's just as a range of prices for diagnostics. That may save you a lot of money. For instance, if you command the solenoid for third gear and of course it's commanded, it's supposed to do that. You check power and ground down there and find out that it's a bad solenoid. You're looking at a diagnostic fee and then a solenoid. Mm-hmm. Say if it's commanded, the solenoid actually opens and you have no third gear, then you're looking at a transmission rebuild. So it does, of course, it would be your opinion or your judgment to, which route you'd like to go. Solenoids aren't uncommon on that transmission, but typically the reason a solenoid hangs is due to, excessive wear, maybe something got in there, clutch material, and hung that solenoid up. So, if it's something you wanted to spend a little bit of time with and do the job, like you mentioned, doing the fluid, the filter, and the pan gasket and the solenoids, with that little bit of risk of not necessarily knowing if it's going to fix it. Of course you can, but I guess in the long run, what I'm saying is you may come out ahead to go ahead and have that, transmission diagnosed.
Right. Okay. All that can be done with a scan tool, like you're talking about, then before you can find out if the solenoids are bad before just going in there and changing.
Exactly. I'm not a big fan of transmission fluid at all, so I try and take every route I can before I have to go in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And can y'all do that at y'all shop?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right. All right. I appreciate it.
All right, Terry. Hope that helps.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Number to call, 706-863-5800. John Ryan, who do we talk to?
We're going to James, Aaron.
Hello, James. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. I love your show every morning. Love driving by your shop downtown, and I can't wait to come in there. But My question is about all-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
I have owned a Nissan Murano with all-wheel drive, which has cost me thousands and thousands of dollars in repairs. I own a Hummer H2 all-wheel drive. Same thing, cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. And I just want to ask you guys, should a person in Augusta, Georgia, where we don't have ice and snow, how would you advise us when we go to buy a car? Should we buy all-wheel drive, or should we do as I did last month when I bought my new Honda CR-V, just buy a two-wheel drive?
James, I love that question. I'm going to give you my 100% honest opinion. No. You're absolutely right. You know, we see so many all-wheel drive cars on the road that do cost a lot of money. I mean, that's a whole nother drive axle going down the road. And like you mentioned, in our area, there's twice a year maybe that, you know, we have to use that kind of thing, and most people stay home during that time anyways. So my opinion would be no, just simply because everything you mentioned, it costs a lot of money. You know, your H2, it definitely doesn't get good gas mileage even in a two-wheel drive form, so it costs a lot more money in fuel, the repair. You know, in my opinion, it does wear tires a little bit more because you have four pulling through turns. I lean on getting four-wheel drive vehicles, if anything, something selectable. I think the best.
I'm gonna just throw one other thing out, and that is true. I mean, if you don't need it, there's no need in having it. But if you have a choice, but also if you go snow skiing or have a place up in the mountains and you go there
Maybe
from time to time, you may very well want an all-wheel
But to
drive.
me, even in that case, I still want something selectable.
Well, yeah, but a lot of there's certain model cars that are not actually available,
right?
In
And that's the
so
point.
you have to. But also, I think that the all-wheel drive takes a certain amount of precautions. For instance, what happens on a regular basis? Someone will have they'll have worn out tires, and most of them and say two of them may last a while longer, so they'll put two new tires on there. That will wear out the viscous damper inside an all-wheel drive because you're actually changing the rolling diameter of two of the tires when you're not changing the other two, and that causes a lot of friction inside that all-wheel drive unit. That can wear it out. Fluid gets overlooked on transfer cases. A lot of times people have them and they'll be due for a fluid change at 50,000 miles and they forget, and it's not get changed. So there's a lot of precautions to make all that stuff last longer. But the short answer to your question is just what John Ryan said. If it's something you don't really need or use,
right?
It's really not having it.
One that you can deal without. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to take one last shot at our Tech Tip quiz, and that will be Robert in South Carolina. Robert, you may have an answer to our Tech Tip quiz, and we will. I tell you what, do I have time to give the question? You don't think so?
No, you really don't.
All right, let me go ahead and do it. John owns a 05 Lincoln Town Car. The alarm goes off. Most of the time when it goes off, it's 4 a.m. He always sees a dog near the car, and there's cat tracks on the car. Why does the alarm go off around 4 a.m.? Robert, do you have the answer?
Well, possibly. I can't figure out the 4 a.m. part, but I think, cats are devious creatures anyhow, especially when there's a dog.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the dog may have a collar on, an invisible fence type collar.
Wow.
And he might have a tracker on it. And the cat will just mess with the dog and run in front of him. He'll entice that dog across this invisible fence line. And as he's running, he jumps up on the car for refuge, and the dog bangs into the car and sets off the alarm.
Robert, that's a great shot at it, but just oh man, Robert gave a lot of thought to that. We appreciate that very much. We are out of time. Time clock's on E. We need to pull over for now, but we'll be back on the road in no time. I'm Maverick Clements with co-host John Ryan Mooney. Our show producers are Sherry Moxley, Zach Llewellyn, Bert Dean, Bo Roberts, Alan Dean, and Sandy Klein. We would all like to say thank you to all those that tuned in, logged in, and especially those that called in to ride with us on the C&C Auto Show.
Give the
Clements and I opened up C&C Automotive back in 1977 with a dream.
Aaron Clements.
We were committed to offering totally honest automotive advice and the very best auto repair and maintenance services to every customer who walks through our doors.
And now my dad and I, along with our award-winning ASC certified technicians and super support team, are still keeping true to that commitment. Amanda Clements.